Good.
So I want to ask you this. So today, obviously, we're talking about this bill that's now being reintroduced that would prohibit adults from marrying minors. I see that in the past you have voted against something like this. If I could ask you now, where you stand on this issue.
Um, you know, there's a lot in this bill that I've looked at. There's a lot of stuff that's been taken out. What I understand this bill is that it removes a lot of your perennial consent. So it takes out the parents having any control over these things. That's what I'm opposed to. And as I read the bill again, it looks like all of that language that would put the parents having say so to the person is 18. I have a uh, you know young high school student, or I say young. He's a senior this year, so I was kind of a late bloomer, and so I still got a young son in high school. So he just turned 18, but he is still in high school. And again, he is a very, very solid individual and works and does great things, but he's still 18. And as long as he lives in our house, goes to high school, then I think that we should have some say so in his life. He just turned 18 this month. And so if he wanted to make choices like this that we're talking about, even though he's still in high school, he would be able to make those choices. Um, I think that's plenty that gives them plenty of time. But up until then, I think that the parents should have a lot of input in these situations. And so I'm not going to vote for any bill that takes away those choices from those parents.
And I was talking to the author of the bill, Fugate, and he was saying for parents who or for minors who need their parents' permission to make something like this happen, that alone kind of shows that this should not even be happening in the first place. How would you respond to an argument like that?
Well, I think that there's so many scenarios that we would have to look at. I mean, again, I think that we can look at and come up with one scenario that we could all say, well, that justifies this. But I think that when you're looking at overall scenarios, overall, does this cause more problems than it would fix? I think that's why a lot of times I think that the authors of legislation have great intentions. I'm sure that Mr. Fugate, Representative Fugate, probably does have good intentions. I'm sure that he probably does have situations where this might fix that one situation. What I'm looking at is overall in every situation. And I believe when you remove all the parental guidelines and take out the parents, and that's the way I read the bill. And again, this bill hasn't come up and hasn't been ready for the floor, so I've not really just studied it really, uh, in depth. But the way I read the bill and the language, I have a problem when you're reading a bill and you look at what's being crossed out, what's being taken out. And for me, when I read this bill, it looks like that we're taking out the parents out of the choices of all of these kind of choices. And again, I understand there probably are situations where parents are not good parents, or there may be a situation that would justify that, but you don't let one situation dictate every situation. And what we see a lot of times when we go in and pass legislation, we have unintended consequences, and that we actually end up making things worse than we do better. And that's what I would be afraid of in this bill, is that for the one or two situations that he is talking about or that he is trying to address may cause many more problems by kids saying, I don't have to listen to my parents. I don't need my parents' instruction. And again, there's a reason why we don't allow kids to vote, until they turn 18. There's a reason why we don't let kids use alcohol until they're 21. And again, I think those arguments, I am for when a kid turns 18. In fact, a lot of people would be mad at me. And I think if a kid can go, or a young person can go fight for their country. I think they should have everything, firearms, alcohol, and all of that. If they're old enough to go fight for our country, I think they're old enough to make the decisions. They're grown, but until they reach that state, I think that they need their parents' influence. I think even after they get to 18, I don't intend to quit influencing my children, but at 18, I pretty much say, hey, you're grown and you can make your own decisions. And so that's what I would say is that that's been that way for quite some time. I feel that it has worked really, really good. And again, unless somebody, and I'm always willing to hear, Mr. Fugate debate or to hear what he has to say that would change my mind. But I can tell you as I stand right now, and I doubt seriously I could hear anything that would change my mind on that. But that's why we have the opportunity for people to present legislation, and quite often me and Mr. Fugate don't share the same opinions. He's a good guy, seems like. I think he's a nice guy. I think he does have good intentions. I wouldn't doubt that one bit. But at the end of the day, this is where me and him will once again disagree. And I'm going to hold on the side of giving the parents the parental authority until that child reaches adulthood, which would be 18.
And you mentioned, at least for right now, there's not really an argument that would really change your mind. But I guess for him, the big picture is, he feels like the current law sort of enables groomers and pedophilia. When you hear that, how do you respond? When those,
Well,
terminologies are thrown out.
and again, I'm not going to say that I couldn't be persuaded if he could show a legitimate. I've been in law enforcement 35 years. If I wanted to address pedophilia and if I wanted to address, sex trafficking and all that, I could show you a lot better ways to try to address those issues. Now, if you could show me something that I haven't, that I can't correlate between what he's trying to do, I don't see that correlation between what he's trying to do and how he reaches that opinion and how he thinks that would impact that significantly. But if he could show me that I'm wrong, and that's why we have that debate. And if he could show me, if I would not advocate for anything that would help promote pedophilia, that would help push those kind of agendas. And again, that's why I fight against all of the woke type agendas that drag queens uh, displaying to kids and those kind of things. I would be, if he was doing something like that, and I would jump on board with him and say, I see where you're coming from, and I see how that would affect that. But with this, I don't understand how he makes that correlation or how this would adequately change anything that has to do with sex offenses and pedophilia. So, I mean, if he wants to talk about what's happening on our border with people coming across doing actual human sex trafficking and, with what's going on with rapes and all of that on our border that's coming and adversely affecting, hugely affecting Oklahoma, and with some of these cartels coming in with the way that we've written our marijuana businesses and what's going on with all the human trafficking, slave labor, those kind of things, I'll be happy to sit down with anybody and have discussions on. Again, if you can stop pedophilia, if you can stop the abuse of children, sex trafficking, please, I'm going to be at that table, ready to go. Probably more vocal and probably stronger than anybody sitting at the table. But on this, I don't see how this bill, in my opinion, would have zero effect on those kind of problems. And again, I don't want to act like, hey, I know everything. So absolutely, I think that's why that we have the ability to present these committees to committees. I think that's why we see that come forward on the floor. We have debates. We have question time, and if again, I'm not going to say I'm always right. I'd be willing to listen to, just like I'd like him to listen to some of the things that I'm sure he thinks that I don't have a reason, but just hear me out and listen. And that's why we have the process that we have. In fact, what I would say is that he ought to have the opportunity to be heard. Now, what we find is a lot of times, especially with the other side's bills, that they don't get a hearing or that they don't get any kind of um, attention. And I think that we should all hear each other's bills and that we should be able to vote and that the public should see how we vote on those. I think transparency for the public and let the public look at this and say, "What does he make sense? Is JJ right or is Representative Fugate right?" I do believe that there ought to be more transparency and more opportunity to. I very much try. If I kill a bill in my committee, it's generally because I've already heard that bill and they're trying to process it two or three times, and I'm going. I'm not going. You've had your day, and we've done read that, and we've done tried that. Or if I don't hear bill, it is really, really, a terrible bill, and we're just not going to waste our time. Most of the bills, I don't care whether you're Democrat, Republican. Most of the bills that come through my committee, I try to let them be heard, and I try to let us vote on them because I believe in that process, and I believe in a process where, uh, the community, the public, ought to be able to see what was put forward and how we voted. So I wish him luck on getting that bill heard. I can tell you, I will listen, but I can tell you that I've already. It's one of those bills we've already looked at one time. Unless he's changed something significantly, I went back and looked at it, briefly, and it just again, when you looking at that bill, what you see is everything having to do with parents is marked out, taking away all your parental decisions and those kind of things. And again, the minute I see that, when they start taking out, when we start trying to control the family or take away decisions from parents, that it doesn't take very long for me to say I'm not for that and that I oppose that. So unless he can show me something that I truly can't see, then I'm going to oppose the bill.
And before I let you go, your connection did cut out at the beginning. So if I could ask you to repeat what you were kind of saying, you were saying that uh, if Fugate wanted to address groomers and pedophilia, that there would be better ways to do it other than this bill.
I do believe I don't see again. I mean, I've briefly read the bill, so I don't want to act like I have just really in depthly read that. But from what I read, I don't even get the connection how that he's going to really have impact in the area of pedophilia or sex crimes or sex trafficking. And so, if he wants to do that, I have been to the border. I have worked 30 something years in probation, corrections, dealing with sex offenders, dealing with pedophilia, investigating sex crimes. There's so many other things that we could do to work in that area to really have impact on that. I mean, we need to improve our laws on what we sex offender registration. We register so many people and waste so much time with people who probably should not be on the register, and we don't spend enough time uh, in the register, actually keeping track of those scary people that we need to keep track of. So I think we could go back and review that. I passed a bill last year that the governor vetoed that would require all the tribes and Oklahoma to work together to make sure we all use the same registration so that whether it's in the tribes or in the state that we can see all the people who should be registered and that we can help each other keep track of that. The governor vetoed that, so that would be a bill that we could come back and try to either get that veto overturned, um, again, to improve or to increase crimes of pedophilia and sex trafficking, and to make sure that those people get the punishment that they need to get when they get out, because a lot of these people get out. We need places where they can live. We don't have any places where if a person's homeless, a person has a sex crime. I've got one right now in Push County who has a medical condition. He's homeless. He's sleeping on a bench. But where can we send him? I can't send him to one of the places I normally could send somebody there because he has a sex crime. And when you talk to all these treatment places or home places, you can't have the person have a sex crime. And then if you have one place that will take them, they can't have more than two, if I remember the rules correctly. And so when you have these people out in your community, there's nothing you can do with them. So we need to talk about let's have places where we can keep track of them. I would rather have a place where we could keep track of him than him being able to go to any bench or wherever. And then we're going to end up sending him back to prison because he didn't register at the right bench or the right underpass. We've got a lot of problems I think that we need to talk about and address, as well as the mental health conditions of these people. And are we getting them any kind of help, treatment, and those kind of things? There's so many things that I think that would be better spent time if we're going to talk about sex crimes and pedophilia than taking away parental choices in certain conditions. And so I just, for me, and again, I just want to always make certain that people know I don't think anybody up there is infallible. I don't think we're up there that just because you're a legislator doesn't mean a lot of them think they know everything, but it doesn't mean that we know everything. So that's why we should be able to listen to each other, hear what he has to present, and then make up your mind. I've read the bill, and I think my mind's pretty much made up. But again, I would like to see him get the opportunity to present his bill and hear him out, and then vote yes or no, and let the public know. I have no problem. I think everybody in Oklahoma knows Humphrey will give you his opinion, and he don't mind showing that opinion. But I think all of us need, I think the public deserves to know where their legislators at, and what they're trying to do. And again, I bet Representative Fugate's district probably likes this bill and probably behind him, whereas my district would not. I think my district would more lean towards me, and so that's what we've got to do is to show our people that we represent that we're representing their interest in that. Who we are and what we're doing as legislators. So I'm for transparency. I'm for him getting an opportunity, but I'm also for me to be able to stand up and say why I disagree, and then that we can all go to lunch together after we're done and work on something we can't agree on.